With the changes to the LCD screen and the new optional EVF, the improved monitoring and viewing options are one of the main reasons to go for the 6K Pro over the original Pocket 6K. Now lots has changed here, so we're going to go over some of the most common questions about monitoring and just see if we can answer them for you. Let's start by looking at the LCD screen itself. Being able to tilt like this makes a huge difference to your work. It's been a long time since I've used a camera which has just had a fixed screen on the back, and it is really hard to go back to when you do. So it may not be a flip out screen all the way to one side, but this tilting one is still very welcome. It's got a nice resistance to it as well, so it feels nice and sturdy. Working handheld, it is just so useful to be able to tilt it up and down. I rarely actually use it flush to the camera at all when using the 6K Pro. But it's not all about using it handheld. It's also useful to have some movement on it when you're in a full camera rig, as this is of course your main touchscreen control panel as well as just a monitor. We've quickly rigged this camera up with a few bits we had here in the showroom to demonstrate this. When building a camera rig, you normally want to extend backwards on 15mm rails. So if you're using an external power source, like a V-Lock battery for example, it normally goes here behind the screen. Now you can of course leave a gap, but with the screen fixed on the back, it's very awkward to reach in and change your settings, and especially to see what you're doing. Now though, you can just tilt it up and access it much easier from the top. A flip out screen would have been even better, as then you could have had it on the side rather than on the top, but this is certainly still an improvement. It's also a new panel. It's a 5-inch 1500 nits 1080p HDR display. So the same size and resolution as the normal 6K camera, but much brighter. The two main questions here from you all are, of course, does it look any better in normal situations? And does it help with the extra brightness when you are outside? Well, in terms of how it looks under normal situations, like here in the studio for example, it's about the same as the original 6K really. The screen on the 6K was always pretty good. It was just not that bright, and a brighter monitor does tend to look better and more impressive. But indoors, you really shouldn't crank your brightness up that much more than on the original, as it's going to give you a skewed sense of your exposure. But in brighter situations like outdoors, it really does help, and it is certainly much more usable in direct sunlight now. It's still no replacement for a true EVF or an extremely high nit monitor like 3000 nits for example, or even just a good old-fashioned sun hood in order to stop those reflections. But it still helps a lot and is well worth the upgrade. One thing though that has been making comparisons hard, to be honest with you, with this camera specifically, is the blue tint on the monitor. Now we've had several customers with this issue as well, and it does affect this demo unit that I've got, but it's not on every camera. Basically, the camera itself is fine. The image looks great, the EVF looks great, as do external monitors, but the picture on the rear LCD monitor is very cold, as if the white balance is wrong by a good 2000 Kelvin, say. Now Blackmagic are very much aware of the issue, and as I said, it's not on every camera, and they are working on a fix. So hopefully this is very much a temporary thing, but for now, it is a bit of a pain if you have a camera that's affected. Hopefully they can fix it soon. Now, the new optional EVF unit is perhaps the addition that has the most impact to the monitoring options on this camera though. Having a small EVF of a decent quality which you can add to such a small camera and then just take off when it's not needed is fantastic. It's not the most amazing EVF in the world in terms of quality. It's not as good as the ones we've seen cropping up on the new flagship mirrorless cameras on the market, for example, like the Sony a7S Mark III or the Canon R5, but it's certainly not bad. The image is clear and it's very easy to focus, and after all, that's all that it really needs to be. Because just having this as an option is enough for me to class it as one of the main improvements overall on the 6K Pro. Now you don't need it in every situation, but there's something about having an actual EVF to just look through, shut off all the distractions, just focus down on your frame, that an LCD screen is never going to be able to replicate. What I would really like to see from Blackmagic though is a way to mount this EVF elsewhere on the camera body. This would let you use it up in a shoulder mounted rig, because in its current placement on the back, it just doesn't work when it's on your shoulder. It uses this proprietary connector design, so if they could make some sort of an extension cable for this, you could use an EVF arm to mount this over to one side, which would be a fantastic solution for shoulder mounted work. But right now though, you are stuck using this on the top of the camera. So overall for me, the two big things that have made the most difference to the monitoring on the Pocket 6K Pro are the tilting mechanism on the LCD screen and this optional EVF. Not because either of them are that fantastic and industry leading in terms of quality, but just them simply existing as options now makes this camera so much nicer to use, in my opinion. If you want to buy a Pocket 6K Pro for yourself, head over to proav.co.uk, and for of course any advice, just get in touch with our sales team directly. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.